This is the JWN podcast. Marissa Sumwalt is an artist and musician currently based in Charleston, South Carolina.
I need to take my medicine.
Her musical identity with her band is known as Maya Gold. Marissa's degree in philosophy combined with her life's experiences have strengthened her ability to overcome the challenges of her life through a creative voice. This was such a fun and free-flowing conversation, and I know you're just going to love seeing the world through her empathetic perspective. Here's my conversation with Marissa Sumwalt. Once you accept Murphy's Law into your heart, you know.
Yes. That's like the one thing in school that I've actually thought of. Well, I've thought about a lot that I've learned in school, but Murphy's Law is one that I think about more than, algebra or geometry.
You see it in many facets of life. Like, oh, if I buy this stock today, it's going to tank tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And like when it does, you just tell everybody, oh, you can thank me for or if I sell, it's going to go up tomorrow. It's
Yep.
Same difference. People have assumed that we all have this magical power to control the fates of many by our decision making, which, when you first walked in, we kind of said the same type of thing.
Yeah.
We basically, you just don't want to tempt fate.
Yeah.
You don't, and I don't know why that is. Why do we?
I think we like to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So that's one way to stay in your comfort zone, I think.
Yeah.
Is to think, well, if it's going to come back down anyway, then I'll just not take the chance of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, do you find yourself in situations in your life right now where the comfortable choice is actually not the one that's benefiting you, but you know it, so you're not scared of it because you know it?
Oh yeah. I almost always believe that the comfortable choice is not the one that's going to benefit you the most. I feel like sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to affect the greatest change.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes you don't need to change, but I feel like as humans, we're always growing and evolving and learning,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know more today than we did yesterday. So I feel like whenever I feel very comfortable where I am, it's makes me anxious because I feel like
someone's going to pull the rug out from underneath you?
Well, yeah. Yes.
Or that you're on a path that maybe you're not going in the right direction because you're too comfortable.
Or I'm not challenging myself enough.
Yeah.
And I'm actually working on that with my therapist about just allowing myself to be happy exactly where I am and not always thinking, well, I can't be happy unless I do this or unless I accomplish this or unless my house is clean 100% of the time and all the dishes are done and stuff like that. So I feel like feeling comfortable sometimes for me almost feels like ignorance.
Yeah.
There's always things people can work on and, grow and become better at and dive deep into. And I feel like sometimes when I'm not ready to challenge or step into the next level of myself, I'll just be I'm comfortable exactly where I am. But knowing good and well, that voice in the back of my head is but are you?
Yeah, what? How long do you want to stay here? How long are we planning to be here? What's coming
Should we set up camp or probably not?
I ride that line in my life constantly. I think we all do.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there going all right, well, I've got everything I need, but I don't feel satisfied.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's an American thing.
Yeah.
Is that a capitalist kind of American, you got to work hard and party hard and blah, 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 and keep achieving. And the whole basis of capitalism is if you have to keep making more and more and more and more and more, or else it all falls apart.
Yeah.
It's well, where's the end there?
Yeah, exactly. I think it comes from me, having all these things growing up and like thinking that I needed, to have my high school education and then go to college and have my college education. And then I was just going to magically find a job. And I like truly believe the college degree was like the golden ticket.
Like you needed it.
Yeah, I needed it. But then I didn't really think about everything that goes into like outside of your degree, like all the experience, all of the internships and the, basically they expect you to have a 4-year degree and 10 years of experience.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I just graduated.
But look at this paper. Look,
I know.
did really
I did
well.
it. I did it.
I studied very hard
I finished
for this.
it. Yeah.
And
And I think like going through that early on in life and being 28 now and looking back, and I did those things because I thought I didn't have another choice.
Right.
Like I thought, okay, I graduated high school. I did really well. So I'm going to go to college at a good university and get my degree. And then I'll figure out what I want to do with my life.
Did you feel like there was a lot of pressure from like the schools you're in and your parents all just basically telling you like, this is the path, this is how you do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to go to, higher education school. And I learned so much outside of the classes I took at college. I went to Clemson.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not a fan?
You just became my wife's new favorite indie rock artist.
Yeah,
and
cool.
art slash sculptor slash whatever. There's a lot of things you do.
There's a lot of things. Yeah.
Could I tell you? I didn't know it first. I didn't realize it at first because I'm just kind of brain dead half the time walking around through life, and then I was like, wait, this is Maya Gold.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a moron.
No, I mean the names, the two different names are kind of confusing, but
well, you do kind of keep it separate in your social media empire.
Mm-hmm. I've never had anything of mine called an empire, so I appreciate.
I think if you got more than 5 followers now, you can just be like, "This is
This
my
is my empire."
If you had 5 dogs, you'd be like, "I am now the lord of
that
this."
is true. I hope to have 5
cabal
dogs.
of dogs.
I hope to have 5 dogs. I love dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they bring me a lot of joy. Yeah, but I think as far as like keeping my art and my music and kind of like me separate has been important.
Yeah.
Because I need each of those outlets so greatly to kind of be my best self and have the areas to express creativity. And I think it's been really incredible to have the opportunity to fall back into kind of the things I've always loved to do.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it's fun to come to grips with the idea that like these things don't have to be on a grand scale.
Yeah.
So like when you're young and you start playing an instrument or you get into music, I don't know, maybe kids today are totally different.
Yeah.
I know that I was lucky enough at a young age that I got into music. I was listening to like big hair metal and but also like the Ramones and the Replacements at the same time. I'm hearing I'm hearing all of that kind of music because you get like the late 80s new wave kind of stuff that was like that, second wave of punk rock and whatnot went on. But you also had I was like 13 years old when like Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue and Poison are like at the height of their career. So it's like, yes! So you have these delusions of grandeur. Like if I learn how to play,
then I have to play that way.
But if I learn how to play like Slash, I'm going to be a rock star.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like king of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get this delusion. And then luckily, like I kind of entered into the punk rock scene at an early age. And like all of those like visions of grandeur went away because I was like, well, that's not the point of this. The point of this is to connect with other people and express yourself because finding the words isn't always there for you.
Yep.
So, yeah. So coming back into it later in life, you've already kind of gotten past.
Yeah.
And when I say later in life, you're friggin' young. So
I appreciate that.
but you know what I mean? Like if you were like 16 just starting out, you might be a little bit more precious about where you think this is going.
Yeah. And I think I would have probably been a lot more influenceable, if that's a word. Yeah. Because I still feel like I'm figuring out my sound and, what I want to produce, how I want my music to sound in the world that I'm writing.
Right.
But I think I'm creating it from the place of I want it to sound what feels best to me and what I connect with the most
Yeah.
as I am right now. Whereas I think if I was younger, I really cared a lot about what other people thought
Mhm.
and what my parents thought. And I think if I had someone that I really looked up to tell me, I think this sounds better. Like, I think you should do it this way, not that way. I think I probably would have listened. And I mean, I definitely take advice from those I look up to now,
Mhm.
but I have more of a strong sense of who I am now.
Right.
And so I think if I look up to someone and they say, you should do it this way, not this way, but my heart and my mind tell me this way, like the other way is the way to go, that I'm not scared to stand up for myself. Whereas when I think I was younger, I probably would have been a little bit like, well, you know, they know best and I probably don't know best. And even though I wrote it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I think a lot of women go through that in their
and
20s.
your band kind of is fluid as far as you have members come and go.
Yeah.
It's really Maya Gold would be just you, right?
It's the band, but
there is
yeah.
a band.
Mhm.
There is a band.
Yeah.
But the members have changed throughout the years. But
Yeah, they have.
But are they ever involved in the songwriting with you guys?
So we have written a few together.
Right.
And we're writing, I hope to write more in the future with them. Yeah. But right now, I usually, like the ones I've written since me and Curtis, Michael, and Nick have been together, I'll bring them a mostly complete song.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll finish the composition and like how we want to do it on stage and where we want to come in and the structure of the song is written together, which is really cool.
You'll put like the spit shine and
Yeah.
the tweaking.
Yeah. And that's so nice because I feel like lyrics usually come pretty easy to me when I sit down, or that's what I tell myself.
Just sit down and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the best songs I've written in one sitting.
Yeah.
Which
you feel guilty.
Yeah, because then when you sit down and you're like halfway through and you're like, I don't know where to go from here. You're like, oh no, this won't be a good one because it's not finished. But I think that has been a practice of continuing anyway, you know, and coming back to those songs that I haven't finished.
Right.
And kind of overcoming that stigma of that I put on my own music of, well, it's not going to be good unless I sit down in one sitting. And that's been just a day, kind of a, I don't know if daily practice would be the word, but kind of like a lifelong example of just the lessons I've learned in that of, you may think something is one way, but then you realize it's only you that taught yourself that lesson.
Yeah,
and you're changing and you're growing and you're learning new things. So you can change the status quo when you're the one that wrote it.
It goes right back to how we just started this conversation. Like you really are sabotaging yourself with like this mystical belief that somehow because you weren't being force fed this song through what seems like you're basically robbing the muse. You know what I'm saying? Like it just is coming right out of you. And you're like, I just regurgitated something and I don't know where it came from. And here it is. As opposed to the songs that you have to fight for. Can take years to write. What I remember from back in my band days were the songs that came out quickly. Definitely always ended up becoming like the fan favorite type songs. The ones that really just hit home. And I have a lot of theories about that. But the ones that I worked hardest at.
You enjoy playing the most?
Exactly. Those were the most fun to play. Most like you saw that song coming up in the set list and you're like, oh great, this song's coming up. This is so much fun to play because you really thought
you put in the work. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, those songs always feel like the ones like if I go back and listen to my catalog now, those are the songs that I like more.
Yeah.
And I wonder, so one of my theories about this, we're getting heady into the songwriting.
Yeah, let's do it.
One of my theories about it is because it's flowing through you so easily, and it's really you processing whatever subconscious influence has come over to you either that day, that month, that week, whatever, your whole lifetime, whatever you're feeling is you've already kind of processed it in the back. You've done the work. You just don't know because it's subconsciously. Yeah, but it's a reaction to like something that is on your mind. Whereas the stuff you're working at, you're really searching for something to say because you're like, I might have this riff or this chord progression that just really hits me in a way that maybe the lyrics don't yet.
Yes.
So I'm just going to keep messing with this until all of a sudden something comes to my head and like I can verbalize it through lyrics.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the trap that a lot of rock and roll based music that we're all in right now, as far as we keep reinventing the same wheel for many years now. Like it's drums, bass, guitar, or piano, I guess. And like some form of that, whether now it's a synthesizer and a drum machine or like a looped sample, but it's of that stuff. And I'm like, what is going to be a popular form of music that defies all that? Because when people have tinges of stepping away from that, you see some great success, especially when it happens and you don't recognize like, oh wait, this doesn't sound like anything else.
Yeah.
But like, you know, how do we escape this formula that we've put ourselves into? Like you said before, we're all comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And that's what we know. So like if you were to come out and lay the beat down with like, I don't know, a breathing exercise or
well,
you know, here's the sound of me brushing my hair and that's the beat.
So one cool thing that I've learned in my process of, because I mean, I've always written music. I picked up the guitar when I was about 12 or 13. My brother got a guitar and he wanted to learn how to play, and he took lessons and he got really good. He's an incredible musician, but he just taught me like the basic chords. And then I made up some chords that aren't chords, but I just thought they sounded cool, that I still use in my songs.
Yeah. You're like, this is cool.
This sounds kind of cool.
And is it normal to have your toe up on the fretboard? I don't know, but it looks cool and it sounds cool.
That's great. That's a great mental picture. And then, so I was in choir in high school and just classical choir. And I stopped playing my guitar kind of in college. And I was writing music, but I don't really remember any of it. I have a few songs that I do remember from that time. But then at the end of college and for a few years after, I really didn't touch my guitar. And I wasn't writing. I was kind of in this, from what we touched on earlier, I thought I had the formula for what I needed to do to be happy, because I wasn't in college. I really struggled with depression, anxiety, and I had to take some time off in school and work, which I'm really thankful I did. And I think it made me more grateful when I did go back and finish, because I had more of an intention and more of a drive to do it because I wanted to finish. But afterwards, I was like not landing any jobs. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I thought I had to get a 9-to-5 and make this amount of money for my parents to be proud of me and for me to be able to be proud of myself. And so I wasn't writing anything. I wasn't playing music. I wasn't dancing. I wasn't painting.
I 100% get it.
And I was like, oh, on the backside of that hole I was in, I'm like, well, no wonder you're digging deeper in the hole, because the things that make you miss yourself, you weren't participating in them, because I don't know if I hadn't identified them yet, or if I was comfortable ignoring the things that I knew I had to do to get out of the hole. Because I think when sometimes you're depressed, it's like you embrace it. And I did that for many a year. So I just thought like, well, I'm depressed. I used it as kind of an excuse. And then through a few years of therapy, I realized like I stopped using it as an excuse and more of a portal to better understand how my mind works and to be more open to other people about how they struggle and what they're going through. So, I didn't touch my guitar for probably 4 years, and I'm a big journaler and a big painter and creator. So
you have a plethora of artistic outlets that you
and
currently employ.
Yeah, I wasn't participating in any of them. And
did you feel when that was going on, like you kept saying, like you'd see your guitar in the corner or your sketchbook or whatever it was, and you're like, yeah, that's me. And then as time goes on, that was me.
Well, yeah, I
then
did
you
feel that
start
way.
you're afraid to pick up the guitar because you're like, how out of shape, like the calluses are even gone on my fingers.
Yeah.
Like what will happen if I pick it up? Then I won't even be where I was. Like
Yeah.
how now you're starting to look at it with resentment. You're like, oh, I'm scared of that thing.
Well, almost, yeah. So I was working in clinical research, and I had that 9 to 5 job that I thought was my quote unquote formula for success and formula for
Was
what
it
I
a
had
job
been
or
taught.
like
I
beginnings
thought that
of your
was
career?
going to be beginnings of my
Yeah.
career.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I wasn't happy. The work environment I was in, I was very grateful for the opportunity to work in that field because I really did enjoy the work, but I was putting everything into my job, and I was working really long hours, and I didn't feel appreciated.
Wow.
And I felt like I felt like I had this conflict in my head of this is what I'm quote supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I have a
I've worked
college
so hard
degree.
for
I've worked
this.
so hard. I had a degree in psychology, so I thought research was the perfect outlet. And I just felt very confused and like, well, I thought this is what I needed to do to be happy. And I thought this was what success meant. So I decided to get back into therapy. And through that stint of therapy, because I felt this like sense of change coming. I was like, I need something different and I need to make the most out of my time. And I was in a relationship at the time that I had started in college when I was still in college that brought me to Charleston. And I think it was the end of that too. I knew I wasn't happy in that for a long time, but I was quote comfortable.
Right.
And I wasn't challenging myself. I was kind of in just like a habit of doing these things, but I wasn't being fulfilled by any of them.
Yeah.
And so I think through that stint in therapy, I realized A, I need to end this relationship. B, she asked me the question one day of, what would your 6-year-old self look at you and say? What would she be proud of? And I was like, wow. And I, thought those things. I was like, well, she went to college and this and this. I'm like, well, I don't know if I had that grasp of what happiness was when I was 6, because that's really young. Yeah. So I would say, And she goes, the next few months, I want you to connect back with her. And I want you to just do something every week that she would be proud of you for. Not your 13-year-old self that's like, oh, I'm important and I need to be smart and I need to be perceived in a certain way. But the 6-year-old that doesn't have any of those, societal aspects yet. She's just imaginative and creative, and she's making up all these stories in her yard and singing and dancing and just being herself. So that was kind of my journey for a few months there of, I'm like, okay, well, I started painting again. That was my first thing that I got back into. I started working out again and just exercising and being outside more. And then I ended that relationship and I met my current boyfriend, Seth. And he really inspired me when I was falling in love with him too. I just, those divine moments where you say like, you've thought about everything in your subconscious and then you just put it down on paper in like one sitting. And I wrote the first song I'd written in years and years about him and falling in love with him. And I think that love inspires people a lot musically.
Oh, yes. Yes. I was confused at a young age.
Yeah.
Because like I told you earlier, like I was hitting puberty when like hair metal was the big thing. And every song was about sex and it was objectifying. And it was like, it was a weird message to get. And it was like, why is every song about this?
Yeah.
And why, like,
especially when people are telling me not to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I always loved like the Ramones or the Replacements. Because I was like, look, you can write a song about sniffing glue. Like you don't have to talk about sex all the time.
Yeah.
But love is a whole different story. That it's not sex. But so when now
Mhm.
you're connecting with other people because it's a universal truth,
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
you're tapping into.
Yeah. I think connecting with that it kind of unlocked. So I was closing that chapter of my life
Yeah.
and stepping into a new one. And I think making that connection with music again and songwriting and being able to put my thoughts down on paper into a clear thought,
Mhm.
that was really a victory for me because, for so many years, I thought I knew what I thought
Right.
and I thought I knew how I felt. But then when I would try to vocalize it or put it into words, there was just such a disconnect between my mind and my heart and what I was saying. And I think a lot of people that struggle with anxiety, first of all,
Mm.
they have that disconnect. So I thought I just was so grateful to have that moment of divine bliss, kind of feeling a certain way, having my mind and my heart and my, human ability to write something down makes sense. And so I think that portal of into the next chapter of my life, it allowed me to open the door and kind of shut it on that last chapter. And then I started writing music about everything. And I did want to talk about, so as I said earlier, I was in choir all through high school.
Yeah.
We had a great choir. I had a wonderful choir director, Mr. Mack, that really believed in me and saw my potential, but I had crippling stage fright.
Oh no.
Like crippling. And
I did not know this about you.
yeah. I could sing in a choir all day or like a small group because you could hear other people. But when I was just singing alone, I had like a physical, aversion to it. Like my anxiety in my throat and my lip would quiver and like because when you have anxiety like that, your throat tightens up a lot. So
Mhm.
your voice becomes very small. And I was given a solo in my freshman pops choir, Memory from Cats, which I love
my
that
goodness.
musical. My mom and dad and I, they took me to Cats every chance they got.
Really?
We grew up in Iowa and it would come to the Capitol and they'd take me. I mean, I saw that probably 3 or 4 times as a kid.
Wow.
And so I was so excited and oh my gosh. I mean, you watch it back on the DVD and I guess I did fine. I auditioned fine.
Mhm.
I got the part. But I think that was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this again. I don't
You were
want to
so
be by
scared
myself.
that it was traumatizing?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was in a way. Because I was 14 years old and I mean, I felt so comfortable in my choir and with the
Mhm.
people around me, but being on stage and in front of a lot of people, I don't really know. But
Right.
and then that continued throughout my high school career. I didn't really want to sing solos. I led my section in the choir my senior year. I was in all-state choir.
Look at you.
So it's I think I learned how to be a exceeding member in a group, really, sports-wise. And
You had natural leadership.
I'm a Leo, so a Leo sun and a Leo moon. So
Boom.
bam. Yeah, that's definitely in my blood. But then,
We just fist bumped, by the way, because I'm also a Leo. So if you don't know what that little exchange was.
yeah, that's fine. Yes, the universal, yeah.
Woohoo.
But yeah, and so I think I had that natural ability to kind of lead. And when I was younger, I felt like I had the means to do so in
Right.
those areas. But then when it came to when I was anxious about something or when I started second guessing myself, that was a really weird feeling to feel because I'm well, I feel like I'm the leader of this, And I don't think I had that self-doubt until I was a little bit older. But my senior year, I did a duet, a senior showcase duet. And I mean, I did fine,
Mhm.
but I was still very scared. And so I went to Clemson and I was in the choir at Clemson.
I didn't even know Clemson had a choir.
Yeah, they have an incredible choir.
Wow.
Yeah. They have a women's choir and a men's choir and then a mixed choir. And I was trying out, they have a girls group, Take Note, and I was going to try out for it because one of my older friends that was a year older than me was in it. And she really encouraged me to do it because she just heard me singing in the car and stuff. And there was a lot of girls at that tryout.
Yeah.
And I had to sit for 30 minutes and I had my paper in my hands and it was just shaking. And I was I knew what song I was going to sing. I practiced all day. And probably 2 people before me, I just walked out. I was like, I can't do this.
You're so crippled that you
I was-
couldn't even go in.
Yeah,
Oh,
I couldn't even
no.
go in. And so I look back at that and I'm comfortable enough thinking about it that I was not ready to have that moment. Like I needed that moment of walking away from a great opportunity to later in life look back at that and say, I will never do that again.
Yeah.
And
So you learned from a kind of failure
yeah.
to what that feels like.
Mhm.
And yeah.
And I think that I needed to walk away in that moment because of so many other reasons. Like I don't know if I would have been able to participate or if I had the maturity to like keep up, being in a group like that. And
yeah, that fear of wait, if I
responsibility.
get this, can I even do it?
Yeah.
Like, will I be able to maintain this?
Yeah. And at that time in my life, I was like, no, you can't do it. And so I had a really negative self-talk track through college, I think.
Oh no.
And I mean, I think a lot of people do. They just don't really talk about it, especially women. And so I was, I never had the opportunity to sing solo, or I didn't create those opportunities from myself after that because I was so scared. And so when I picked my guitar up and wrote that song about Seth, and
What was the name of that song, by the way?
It's called Falling.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was so scared to sing it for him. And there was one night, I had written it like a month prior, and I think I had like a couple drinks, and I was like, okay, I want to sing you something. And I like sat like halfway across my apartment at the time and like turned away from him and sang
You
it.
sang
I was
it to
so
him.
scared. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness. That is so sweet
yeah.
though. Like that's such a brave thing to do.
Yeah. But I felt comfortable. He's
Yeah.
always made me feel like I can do anything that I
Right.
put my mind to. And
Did he cry?
he did not cry, but he was stoked about it. He's like, oh my gosh, you read that about me?
Right. I think the realization, like when that kicks in, you're like, oh my.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That's heavy.
And
Like,
I was
that's-
falling. Yeah, I was falling in love with him from the second I met him. But I think I started playing guitar a lot more after that.
Yeah.
And then I remember being over at his house one time and having my guitar because I was just playing around. And one of his friends, Brant, was over, and he asked me to sing the song that I wrote for Brant. And I had that physical reaction of like,
You're like, oh no.
oh God, I can't sing in front of people. And, I think at that time where I had made such large, important decisions for
Mhm.
myself in my life up to that point, that in that moment, I did sing. I did sing for him. And as I kept singing, that physical anxiety kind of washed away.
Right.
And I think that moment was me deciding to not be scared anymore.
Yeah.
And then,
Taking charge.
yeah, taking charge. And so I wrote a bunch of songs over that 6-month period. Quite a few that just came out like in one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And Seth and some of my friends really encouraged me to do like an open mic night at Ellyboro Mini Bar. So that was just about 2 years ago that I sang songs for the very first time, played my guitar. And I look
love
at
that place, by the way.
I love that place. And then Workshop, which I'm so sad that they're closing, but I played there every single Tuesday. I would go to work. I'd be there at 8:00. I'd barely get off at like 6, and I'd be wearing scrubs. Sometimes I played it in scrubs.
That's awesome.
And
did you play this? Did you cover the song Scrubs just because?
No,
I feel like that would have been.
I should have. Yeah. That would in the future. I will. Well, I don't have to wear scrubs anymore. But
like, if you're ever in a situation where you find yourself wearing scrubs, you just be like, listen, just so y'all know, I'm aware that this is going on. And just to put an exclamation point at the end of this, here's the song Scrubs.
I don't want. Yeah. So I think that's so great. I'm not very punny. Like I'm not very quick-witted. Like I'll always think of like a good, funny thing to add to a conversation about 15 seconds too late. Or sometimes 2 days too late. I'm like, man, that would have been a good one. But I'll just laugh to myself. But yeah, I will think I'm I'll think about playing scrubs.
Yeah, then you're like, man, now I gotta get back into medicine just to deliver on this joke.
Ironically, I have to get back into clinical research. Ironically, to deliver a joke. That would be fun.
You know, hey, maybe you'll break through, and like in that process, you'll like discover a way to use your art and combine it and become this like breakthrough.
Maybe,
you know,
punny artist.
No, oh gosh, I have such, because wordplay, puns, things like that, they have their place when they're done perfectly well.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when I moved to the South, my distaste for that form of humor was like completely blown out, because I was just like, you can't even drive down the road. Like every store, every mom and pop store has got a punny name.
Yep.
And like every billboard, churches have it on their front, and
it's like a language here.
And I was like, oh my gosh, these people are not funny. Why do they think this is funny? This isn't funny. This is just lazy.
Yeah, and then I feel like, well, I don't mean to be judgmental about certain people, but I think, because I grew up in the Midwest.
JWN.
Yeah, I grew up in a very small town in Iowa, where, you know, the bigger town out of the two I lived in between had 1,200 people.
That's oh my goodness.
Yeah, so my grade had like 40 kids in it, and I mean, my mom's from there, and my whole family still lives there, and I love that I had that experience growing up. I feel like it really allowed me to be unapologetically myself when I was little, and because I really, you know how people say like in small communities you're really raised by a village. I definitely feel like it was that way. Like I loved being around my family and community there. So, and then when I was 12, I moved to Greenville, and my high school had, I think we had like 270 kids in our grade. So I think that was kind of like a culture shock of like, oh gosh, especially when you're that young coming to the South. I didn't really understand the nuances of like humor and language and how people communicate differently. But I'm very thankful now as an adult that I have like the Midwestern experience of communication and just way of life, and then like the Southern way as well. Because I feel like
say it, don't hold back. No one will know.
I'm very grateful that I grew up in the Midwest. I'm very grateful. I feel a lot more open-minded and kind-hearted.
I feel bad, or not bad. I don't know what I feel.
I don't feel bad for people that grew up here, but
no, not that grew up here. That never experienced living in multiple places.
Yes.
Because what happens, even if you grow up in the greatest place on earth. So let's say you were born in this. Let's just pick a great, like Paris.
Yeah.
And if you never left Paris. You'd be so robbed of the human experience.
It's hard to understand how other people feel. And I think everybody should live in different places in their life. Yeah, even as an adult, like if you've lived if you've lived in the same place, you know, your whole life, I think you should go out of your comfort zone and kind of live somewhere else just for a time. It really does change your perspective on things.
It helps you understand that whatever fears you had of a different type of person are largely just fear. They're based on just you not understanding or knowing them. Once you understand or know them, and you're like, these are great people. I just, some of it I don't get. I'm not going to do some of the things that people do. But that's cool. I'm okay with that, because I know that that's just culture. That's where they're coming from. That's what they know. And they're growing, they're evolving into other things. And we're all kind of melting into the internet has made it so like there's a lot less, it's almost like a virtual representation of the strip mallification of the world.
That's incredible. I love that visual. Yeah.
But it's bringing everybody together on the same page, because if everyone goes on to like say Reddit and you start figuring out what the group think is of any community on like the internet, and you start like understanding how they react and how they think and like what's the rules of engagement are. And it starts to tear away a lot of, and there's good and bad in that. Like there's good in that there's a lot more people who can find their crowd. You know, if you grow up
Yeah.
in a small town with 1,200 people, finding other people that maybe are into pink unicorns and blackberry yogurt.
Yeah. I love that about the internet.
You know what I'm saying? Like finding your group is a lot harder in the older days, but now you can find your group. So you could be that weird kid and you no longer feel like the weird
ostracized.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that about the internet. My favorite like true crime podcast is called My Favorite Murder.
Oh yeah.
And
did you go when they came here a couple years ago?
Yes, I did. It
there.
was incredible. Yes, they're so great. And their Facebook group itself has shut down, but they have all these spin-off groups of like I'm in like a Harry Potter one where like it's people that love the podcast, but then they also love Harry Potter, and like a Bob's Burgers one and a Game of Thrones one, and like it's incredible that I think the internet in that sense creates a lot more opportunity if you have the gusto to kind of seek out other people that like if you have the gusto to be kind of like unapologetically yourself, you can really find people that are interested in anything. And I love that aspect of it because I mean I have a lot of different things that I'm interested in that say my best friend isn't really that interested to, or my boyfriend really isn't that interested to, but I can still participate in that interest on
and I think those positives kind of outweigh my intimidation of what all of that means.
Yeah.
But there is still something a little sad about like traveling to a different city in the United States where you used to have to go travel to get like a specific type of food or see a specific type of art or see a specific type of architecture. The architecture's still kind of there, but you could still see pictures of it and video and all that. Whereas now, like I said, the strip mallification where everything is starting to become samesies, you know, so you go any place in America and you're like, oh, here's a TJ Maxx next to a grocery store, next to a Rack Room Shoes, next to a Pet Smart or whatever. And then, here's a Moe's and here's a pizza place or a Chinese food place. It's like the same thing over and over and over again, no matter where you go.
But I think it's the lesson of, like, I think of all that, yes, and that is a lot of how America is, but it's the places that are different that I remember the most.
Well, yeah.
You know?
I mean,
and that's a lesson to like, as a human. Like, there's lots of aspects of people that are the same, but it's really what makes you different, like, or what stands out that is special, I think, and that people remember. And I think you have to, it's like, people that want to encourage the strip mallification of businesses and, you know, just make every area the same, they don't like appreciate the differences or like respect them.
Yeah.
But I think like that's why, I don't know where I'm going with this. But I just feel like it's
complicated.
You know, because you're taught everything's the same and you want everything to be the same. But then as an adult, you learn like, well, actually, it's not the TJ Maxx that I remember. It's the, you know, thrift shop on this street in this random city that I found and walked into. That's one of a kind.
Oh yeah. I mean, one of my favorite destinations in any town I go to is like, where's the music store? Where's the record store? Because those are things. Because there's no such thing as like a Tower Records anymore. So those are the things where you get that mom and pop individual feel, and you could really get the vibe. Yeah. Because then you could see, oh, where's the local music section, and you could see what kind of things like the indie people, like the independent artists in that area are into, and and you get a good vibe. Yeah. So those kind of things, the coffee shops, and but even the coffee shops, like you know, it's a dying breed as well. So then you got to get specialty shops, and I feel like, you know, let's say like there's this great place. I eat a plant-based diet. And there's this place in West Ashley called what is it? Oh gosh, the Abundance of Sweet something. It's a vegan pastry place. Okay. It's in West Ashley, and but the name just as soon as I started saying, it, I was like, oh no,
you can insert it in later.
Oh no, old age has kicked in. There goes that name. Something of Abundance of Sweet something or other. Just look vegan pastry shop. You'll find it. And I apologize because it's wonderful. Yeah, and it's so unique, and it's just like this beautiful. Like cafe, but then you know, as soon as like those things start popping up, then like Starbucks can be like, we're gonna have a vegan bakery section. You know, just like on the internet, we see all these social media networks. Like, I just turned on Instagram and like they have like they're trying to like jump in on the Clubhouse thing, like where they've got create your own like live room and invite your friends to have a live conversation. I'm like, that sounds great. It exists already, and this company's new, and it's the hot new thing. And Twitter's doing the same thing too. And like they're all just like so quick to just no, you can't have your individuality. We want that. Yeah. And I feel like America does that time and time again. It's maybe not just an American problem, because when you go overseas, you're starting to see that kind of stuff happen there too. Yeah. So I don't know. Is it good to have that comfort, to have that common string between us all, or do we really has this pandemic situation that we're still going through, has that made us kind of more localized and realize like, hey, we need to like appreciate the things that we have close by? I think I don't know so much on that like aspect of that topic, but I think like a thought that just popped in my head when you were talking about it is I think it's so important for people to be authentically themselves. Yeah. And how do you get there? I think you get there by, or at least I got there by living how I was, quote, supposed to live. And trying to work towards goals that I don't know that I necessarily aligned with, but I thought I had to do them in order to be happy. And I had to live that way and realize, well, wait, I already did what I was supposed to do to be happy. Well, why am I not happy? And then I had to, break that down and realize, well, I'm not doing the things that I need to do myself to ensure my happiness. And once I started taking care of myself on those aspects, then I could be more open about other aspects of my life. And I felt more connected with my inner self and like my needs and my wants and how to communicate them. And so I wasn't scared to stand up for what I believed in, like outside of myself, if that makes sense. So I think when society kind of pressures people to be a certain way, and you haven't had that experience of like connecting back with yourself and kind of finding your voice, that has been a huge theme of me over the past few years. Just finding my voice. And sorry. Do you feel like you could have gotten there without the pain of the depression, the anxiety of no. Of following. It's a hard thing to tell somebody, hey, like you're going to have to friggin' really struggle to find yourself. Yeah. And I don't think everybody has to. I don't. I think most people do. I think a lot of the stuff that happened to you in college though, and on that path and and working in the field that you were trained to be working in. Yeah. There's probably stuff that, and as you go on in life, you will actually notice it more and more and more as you get older. Yeah. Things that were important that you learned from that it's like, hey, I learned that doing this other thing, and now I know when I'm doing this thing what to do and what the right decision is here, because I've already gone through that in a slightly different way. So you're not really, it's not like you're wasting time by going on that discovery process. And oh no, not at all. Yeah. And I think it's change. Like that is the factor for me that I've always feared the most. Like I think that, which is funny because when you're not happy, you need change to get out of this place you're in. But my therapist pointed out something really important to me, that most people fear change. When things are changing, they're anxious because they're not sure if it's going to work out or if this is what they need to be doing. And even if they're not comfortable with where they are, they just fear change. Right. But in history, and like when you're growing up learning history, you're being taught the moments of change in society. Oh yeah, every historical moment is when something shifted. Yes, but like we're not taught that perspective on it. We're not taught, hey, this is when the, focus of our nation changed, or when, this whole generation changed. We're taught like, oh, this happened then. Yeah.
And then this is how it was after that.
And it's hard to
We're
process.
not taught the process. Yeah.
And the process too, in the ways they do explain, like, oh, well, this war happened and it changed this, and this many people died to make that happen.
Yeah.
And the gravity of that does not hit home because it feels like it was
Especially when you're
so
younger.
long ago.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't even alive then.
Yeah.
So it's like make believe time, you know.
And you
questioning
can't
if that even
feel-
ever happened.
Yeah,
Am I
you-
here now? I don't know.
You can't feel the like gravity of the change, I don't
Right.
think, unless you experience it. And so when you asked, you know, can you do it without the pain? I think a lot of people can. But I think, at least for me, everything that I've been through,
Mhm.
exactly how it happened, needed to happen to like accumulate where I am today.
Well,
And
do you see someone like a Billie Eilish who's extremely young,
Mhm.
or Justin Bieber, extremely young, finding immense success,
Mhm.
and you're like, you didn't even have a chance to fuck up. Like, what the hell's going on here?
No, I don't
Do
ever.
but
think
no,
like
I'm not
that.
saying it
Yeah.
from. I'm not saying from a judgmental standpoint of like, oh, screw them, they didn't even have to struggle. But
Yeah.
like, do you? When I ask the question, like, is there? Obviously, people have done.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they don't have their pains and whatnot, but
Yeah.
I'm saying like to find a fulfilling thing to do in their life and a way to exist that's kind of true to themselves. Like you get the feeling with Billie Eilish, she's never gone through a period where she just didn't have to be herself or
Well,
didn't get to be herself.
yeah.
I'm sure she, go to school. There's things, there's little things, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about like making life decisions because you're on a path that you've been told to go down. you
Yeah.
know?
I don't think I would necessarily look like Billie Eilish and think that, just because I think that people's lives can be hard without, the outside understanding their struggles per se. And like, I know a lot of people that are my age that are very comfortable with who they are. And, I use the word trauma pretty, freely. But I think it has, different meanings to different people. And I think some people would say they've never experienced trauma and yet they are happy and they're content. And you know what? My perspective on that is great. I'm thrilled that you genuinely feel that way, and that's incredible. I think everybody deserves to be happy and everybody deserves to be proud of themselves and who they are. But I know personally, and there's a million quotes about this, but like, I had to feel like what my low was. When I felt my lowest, I didn't know that's what that was. I thought it was just reality. But I feel more compassion for people and I feel more empathy towards people that are struggling.
Right.
And I think I just treat people, I think with the mindset of how would I want to be treated in those lowest moments? And I think, because you never know what someone's struggling with. I
Right.
mean, someone could be literally telling you how happy they are and how great they are with themselves, and then they go home and cry at night.
That thought, what you just said right there, like that thing is such a hard thing to recall
Yeah.
in a moment of anger.
Yeah.
So like if somebody randomly like cuts you off,
Oh,
flips you
gosh.
off, or does something just really rude to you,
Yeah.
like, out of nowhere, and they have some weird reaction. It's hard to recall, like this person their dog might have just died.
Yep.
Or something else in their life that is just traumatic.
Yeah.
And so you don't know what they're doing. They could just be
So I have a
an
theory
angry
on
person.
anger, actually.
Okay.
I learned it in college.
All right.
I was a psychology major. And so we have different types of emotions. We have primary emotions and then we have secondary emotions. So primary emotions are like sadness and joy. And then anger and anxiety are secondary emotions.
Really?
So when you're angry about something, it's normally a secondary emotion. That's hiding a primary emotion. So you either feel threatened, you either feel sadness, or you even feel joy, or you feel something you don't understand. So when people are angry, it's never because anger is the only emotion in that. It's normally
A
tied in.
reaction.
Yes, it's a reaction to a different emotion. And so it's so funny that you brought up, when someone flips you off in traffic, and it's hard to remember but I think with practice at that, it's not that hard because that has literally changed how I drive. I used to just never give myself enough time to like get anywhere. And so I was always stressed when I was driving. And I wasn't the one necessarily flipping people off, but if someone would cut me off, I'd be like, oh, it's like mini road rage. But I realized it was just stressing my own self out. And so like when someone's rude to me, or especially like I work at in the produce department at Whole Foods now. And sometimes people just like, if we're out of something, like I literally have zero control over that.
Right.
But they'll be like, and they'll say something rude and kind of take it out on me and then walk away. And I've found through like many practices like that of like dealing with people that, just are kind of miserable people. And I'm like, you know what? They have to be like that all the time.
Right.
That's sad.
It's fun in a retail environment too. when you show that compassion back to them, though, when someone gets angry at you.
Yeah.
This was something I used to do back when I was like a teenager working in retail.
Yeah.
And when people would take out whatever anger they have about the situation, the company, the world, whatever it is, and they put it on you, and you come back at them with like really like a
honest compassion or understanding.
Like you diffuse the situation in a pretty nice way.
Yeah.
But you do it in a way where you kind of you stand your ground, but you still let them know, like, hey, I hear you. I know this is tough, but what can I do to make this? And it's amazing when you see, because they immediately back down. Most people just do a 180, and then they realize what they've done and what they've said, and they just feel awful.
That's because anger is a secondary emotion.
Right? Yeah.
So it brings them right back down.
I love this.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so that was something I learned working in the medical profession, especially with like billing and everything. One of my providers at the time, she just said to me, whenever someone is yelling at me or is just being really unreasonable with me, I just try to be as kind as I can to them because I know that that's not their best version of who they are. And like, it's something that they're probably not going to be proud of, or I at least hope they reflect back on it and they aren't proud. So I just try to not feed into the negativity in the room. I try to like bring light to it. And I was like, wow. Because I mean, it is so easy when someone's being, unreasonable towards you. Because like I react very anxiety driven to like, I'm trying to find the word, irrational situations.
Yeah.
Like when someone has emotion towards me or something or a situation that I feel like is kind of irrational.
Right.
They
just
like,
come at you out of nowhere.
Yeah. It's hard to have a conversation or justify actions or like find your ground with when someone's being irrational, because you're like, well, I feel like the ground you're standing on is shaky anyway. So
yeah. They've already lost control of their ability to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think tying back to writing music, I think that that's been so freeing for me to have this outlet in my life where I can literally write about anything. Like you were talking about earlier, you can write a song about sniffing glue. I mean, I wouldn't have that experience to write about, but like, you never
sniffed like the markers in grade school.
Okay. Do you remember that? Like, I think it's called rubber glue.
Rubber cement.
It's twisted and the stick is on the center of the lid.
And it sticks to it.
I do remember that shit smelling really well.
Oh, yeah.
But I never I was very pure all through school.
I never thought
I never really drank. I never did anything. Yeah.
You wouldn't catch me huffing paint.
No. So I wouldn't have that experience to write on. But I mean.
But thank you to the Ramones for going through those experiences and telling
so
me
that
all
we didn't
about
have
it.
to.
So I could be like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm not going to do that. I'm also not going to get a lobotomy as a teenager either.
Gosh.
So let's do this.
Yeah. Yep. And I just think it's such a cool area of existence, really, to have this freedom. I think sometimes when I haven't been checking in on myself and kind of really upping my self-care, and when I'm really busy is one time, it feels overwhelming that the possibilities are endless, especially when I have so much going through my head every minute. I'm very ADD. So whenever I do write a song, I always feel very accomplished and like connected to myself.
It is a satisfying feeling.
Yeah.
When you get to that point where you're like, this is done.
Yeah.
I got this.
But like on the sense of being irrational, sometimes I'm irrational with myself and I'll start writing something and then I'll have like 2 verses. I'm like, what is this even about? Like, what are you even writing about? And it's mostly like these ambient thoughts in my head that are kind of like a track. And I used to be really hard on myself because I was like, you have limited time to write songs and like practice. And like, you've been sitting at your guitar now. It's like 1 a.m. You've been sitting here for 4 hours. And like, what are you even writing about? And I used to kind of be hard on myself because, you know, I am busy and I don't have that much time to devote to all of these different things in my life. But I've seen it now as when that happens, it's just one way to realize that I am kind of out of sorts and like my brain, my mind and my heart and my like body aren't as aligned as I want them to be. So instead of having that critical voice of you're being irrational, like you don't know how you feel, you don't know what you mean, you don't know what you want to say. It's more so like I need to refocus like my intentions in my life in general and come at tomorrow with a new point of view and kind of just like reassess the situation. So I just think music and art too. Art is so frustrating to me sometimes.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you, it sounds like you have really put a lot of energy into reading warning signs.
Oh yeah.
Like you are, it appears from our conversation right now that you're really focused on noticing the signs when it's time to make a move, make an adjustment, make whatever it is.
Yeah, I definitely feel, and I appreciate you saying that because that means a lot to me.
Well, because it's just such an important skill to have because I feel like, you know, I don't want to talk about the pandemic, but collectively, I think something, you know, when we all, a lot of people, myself specifically, thought like, okay, this is really hard. This sucks. We're going through this. We're just going to keep fighting through it. Eventually, with just one foot in front of the other, we'll get there. We'll get out of this. It'll be okay. It's gonna be very hard. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with challenges. I'm okay with doing hard things. I love to run marathons. They suck, but I love to do it. I'll do it again because the whole process is just something to, you get through it and you get out of the other side and you've become a stronger, better person for it, right? But something happened with this where all of a sudden I didn't see the warning signs, and then they overcame me, and I was completely and I'm still in it. I haven't gotten out of it, of this crippling anxiety and depression that is taking away the things that I found that I used to do. And a lot of the things that I love to do to experience life to the fullest are no longer available in the ways I accept or know and whatnot. I didn't see the signs. And I wish I did. I wish I understood what was going on, because maybe I could actively course correct at the time. Have you found yourself able to actively course correct now?
So it's a balance for sure. I was thinking about that while you were talking. Like, I think at least with the pandemic, like no one saw this coming. Like at least for the extent of how long everything would take and like how separated everything would be. I'm
not going to say no one saw it coming. I'm going to say that most people didn't think it could happen.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Because people definitely saw it coming.
I remember it's almost exactly a year ago. I went to Thailand last year, February 26th through March 11th. Oh my God. I backpacked solo on a 2-week trip, and oh my gosh, it was the greatest trip of my life. But when I got back,
I cannot
everything
imagine.
shut down, and I'm like on my way there I had the plane was hardly empty, and like everybody was just kind of starting to talk about it, but not really. And like while I was over there, it wasn't like mass time yet. And I was like, oh, cool. I get a whole row to myself. I slept for like 6 hours on the flight. And then on the way home, the day I was in Bangkok, everything was canceled except my one flight my one flight out of Bangkok to Seoul, South Korea, and the one flight from Seoul, South Korea, to JFK. Those were the only 2 flights that were like,
Still going.
Going.
Yeah, because they wanted to
and
get
they
you
were
out of there.
packed. Yeah, there was a billion people on each flight. And I was just like, oh gosh. And I got, I was living in this bliss. And then I came back and I remember I was living alone in my house at the time. And I remember them talking about 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, okay, like, I guess we can do this for 2 weeks. And I remember everybody feeling like that. They're like, oh, well, everything won't be shut down for 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks is so long, like restaurants and bars and stuff. And then here we are a year later. It's like, I think this whole year has just been a lesson for people. So back to what you're saying of the warning signs.
Yeah.
I think that it's a delicate balance between knowing myself and seeing. Every time I see a warning sign, it's because I learned that sign through a situation where I did not know it was a warning sign for anything bad. And so I think it's a conscious kind of effort on my part to not necessarily learn from my mistakes, but prevent myself the heartache and like the struggle that I have been through by not allowing myself to honor my progress by doing the same things over again. So I think like when you're talking about like warning signs when you need to change. So, I mean, for years, I had that feeling of anxiety where I'm like, I'm not happy, but I don't know why. And I don't have any need to figure out why because I don't feel like I'm intelligent or I don't feel like doing the work that it would take to
Can you imagine
out why.
you're not feeling like you're intelligent?
Yeah, I am. I definitely felt like that for a while.
I would say that would be the, I think the older you get, the dumber you feel. I don't know. I don't know if that's normal for most people. Yeah. But I feel like the older I get, like the more I realize, like I really am a dumbass.
Well, yeah. I think it's when you're younger, you think that the world is yours for the taking.
Well, and you get people telling you you're so smart, you're so gifted, you're so this, that, and the other thing. Oh, they're always lifting you up.
Yeah.
And
you don't know anything yet.
Right.
So everything you're learning, you have to learn it because you just don't know it yet.
And then if you experience rewards based on that stuff, like, here's this scholarship, here's this prize, here's this thing, here's a record deal, here's whatever it is. And you're like, yeah, it's because I'm awesome. You get to fool yourself. Like it's easy to get to that trap. Yeah. And then you realize, no, you're just an idiot. You know, 'cause other people saw something that they could use from you. Yeah. Or whatever it is.
Well, yeah. I think intelligence is emotional as well. So like, I think my capacity for learning has changed as I've grown.
Right.
Because it's not just about like taking the information in a textbook and regurgitating it on a test. It's more about like, exactly like we were talking about, like assessing a situation and being able to maneuver in that situation. Or like, I mean, I still feel very unintelligent when it comes to like adult like taxes and especially with my small business, like I feel very unprepared for like that aspect of adult life.
Right.
I mean, I'm doing it and like insurance and all of that good stuff. And
I wonder how much of that is personality type though, because there are some people that are so like their language is in abstract in like arts and whatnot, which is why this whole podcast exists because I love talking and exploring about that stuff. But I find a lot of times that those things and like certain things like,
structured
accounting, they don't always mix. Like it's almost two foreign languages that just have no common denominator between them. And you're like, I got to do this. I've got to learn all of this.
I feel that way with like band politics a lot.
Oh my goodness.
Like, especially as a female musician in Charleston, I feel like what kept me a lot in the beginning from kind of putting us out there and trying to play shows with people is I felt like I wasn't going to get like an even opportunity because it was I felt
because you were a female?
Because I was a female and also because I didn't have anything out yet. I just feel like, and I still feel that way, kind of. I think male bands work with male bands. a lot
Really?
more than they do to bring like a girl on to the bill. Yeah.
Wow. Do you still feel that way? Okay.
Well,
I
no
say
one's
that,
playing shows now.
well, no. But
But yeah, I do. I do feel that way.
I feel like in the last X amount of years,
Mm-hmm.
that women have taken over rock and roll.
Well, yeah.
And I
In
mean
town.
that. I mean that like numbers wise. Like
Mhm.
most like guitar based rock and roll, there are women in either they're the front person or in a lead role.
Yeah. There's a lot more women in music, for sure.
Well, and I've talked about this before on the podcast. Like Fender did a study, and they found that like 50% of the guitars they sell, like to first time guitarists, are to women. So they changed their whole marketing strategy to include and target women.
Yeah.
So I do feel, that's why I'm surprised that you still feel that way. Because I remember having this conversation with this dude. I don't even remember the band's name. I remember they were from Atlanta and they played at the Royal American. This is maybe 3-4 years ago. And this guy, I sat down outside, like I was there during the day doing something, and they were there sound checking. And so I just sat down with this guy talking to him over a beer, and he was explaining to me like how hard it is to be an all white male band in Atlanta.
I just
He's
rolled
like,
my eyes so hard.
I was sitting there like, am I really having this conversation? But I was like interested to see where he was
You're
going
like, what
with
do you
this.
mean by that?
And he was basically saying like in the punk rock community of Atlanta, if you don't have somebody who's either a different race, woman, or transgender, or gay, or whatever it is, if you're just a cis white male band and that's all that makes up your band, you will not get booked in shows. You will not be included in festivals. You will not. And then like a month later, they were playing Shaky Knees, and I was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? You're playing Shaky Knees.
That mindset is a toxic masculinity ruins the party again.
Well, I think it's the weird,
because it's not reality.
Yeah, it's the weird belief that there's these things that you can't control that are pushing you down, and that you're being ostracized. Like, dude, what?
No.
Since when?
Yeah.
Like, relax. If you're good, I mean, I know meritocracy is not like a popular word amongst everybody, but in reality, if you're good, people are going to notice.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
If you're a band that's really good, I don't care if you're made up of friggin' toads.
Yeah.
Like, people are going to notice, and you're going to be really good. So I'm saddened and that to hear from your perspective.
It's been hard
that
to break onto
still
the scene
hard.
for sure. I'm really grateful for 9 to 5 and Taylor Sherwinski for booking me in things, and
well, this
other
FemFest thing that we could talk about as well, because you played the first FemFest, and you were playing the next one, right?
Yes, and
so exciting.
I remember being at Tobin's with Taylor this fall.
Tobin's with Taylor.
That would be a good.
This movie's coming to
radio
Netflix this fall.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I would love a TV show about Tobin's. I love that place. But Anna Crosby was singing with some of the boys on stage. She came up for one song, and I just said to Taylor, I was like, man, you know what? We need more women in this town singing. And like, wouldn't it be? And she's like, yeah, we really do. And, we just had a conversation about, an all woman lineup, and she made it happen. And I was so grateful to play the first one. It was incredible. I played with Baby Yaga and Babe Club for the first time. And,
that was so much fun.
It was so much fun.
I missed your
I know you did, but that's okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Will you be at the next one?
I hope so. I got I only reason I haven't bought a ticket, I was like, I just need to look at my schedule, because I know I'm going away at some point during that month, and I just want to make sure it's not that, because I feel like, you ever feel like every time you travel, like every good show comes to town, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm hoping I get to go and actually experience the whole
April
thing this
17th,
time. Yeah.
Tradesman Brewing. Yeah.
I'll be
I'm
fully
excited.
vaccinated by then, and I'll be completely ready to take on the world and not feel guilty that, still going to be practicing whatever we need to do.
Distance.
But there's like this guilt that gets lifted when you go out and do something, and you're like, well, the chances of me spreading it to somebody else that might kill their grandma or whatever.
Yeah, my dad just got fully vaccinated, so
it's quite an emotional.
Yeah,
experience.
I had COVID actually in June.
You did
last year. I did.
Did you know it when it hit you, or were
Oh,
you
yeah.
symptomatic? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. It was the worst sickness I've had in my
Oh,
well,
no.
I've been pretty sick. I've had surgeries and whatever, but like flu wise, yeah. I had really bad body aches, really terrible like sore
Mm.
throat and a cough after a few days. I had a really high fever and my AC was broken at the time in
What?
June. So it literally felt like I was living in hell. Like I was like, is this how I die? Like
And
this
it's not
has
like
to
you
be
could
what
go to your friend's house to
Nope.
sleep on their couch and enjoy their
and
air
AC,
conditioning.
yeah.
Oh.
And the AC guy couldn't come over to fix it because I had COVID and I didn't want to give it to him because my AC unit's inside the house. It's
Oh,
like
it's
one
like
of those individual
yeah.
ones.
Uh-huh.
Oh gosh. And
Were you like on Amazon, like, can I get an in-window unit delivered today, same day, please?
I had like 6 fans going. I was just like, no, but I don't know. I don't think I realized at the time that that's what was wrong. It took me a few days to be like, oh gosh, my
Wow.
air isn't working. I thought I would just had like crazy fever.
You were getting a
But,
fever. You're
yeah,
like, man, this is a
so-
really nasty
Yeah.
fever.
Yeah. It's been, I mean, that was a crazy experience.
Mm.
And then, but because of how sick I was, my boyfriend's dad works in immunology, and he was explaining to me because we went home for Christmas to see his family, and
Mhm.
I got COVID tested and negative, and I got negative, and then I got antibody tested, and it came back that I still had the antibodies in December, like late
Wow.
December. And he was explaining that like the sicker you are, and the more your body has to like fight off the illness, so the antibodies that you form will, like, I don't know if
They're
the
strong.
medical
They're
term,
more
but they'll
potent.
quote last longer, or they're stronger. Each of them is stronger, so I
Yeah.
don't know. But yeah, so that's been very interesting. But to tie back to males booking bands and females booking bands, I don't know if it's. I think that just the collective conscious is like, I definitely feel more comfortable being around women, and especially in music, like reaching out to another woman in a band about playing a show together or something like that. And I don't know if that comes from reaching out to men who have not gotten back to me,
Right.
or if it's from just feeling more comfortable with.
Yeah, I wonder how much of
Yeah.
it might be a
Yeah.
situation, because just from booking this podcast,
Mhm.
I mean, just you and I connecting, it took
Yeah.
us quite a while
Yeah.
to finally connect.
Yeah.
And it was just whatever life situations going on. But
Mhm.
also, I know when dealing with creatives, if I send you a message today, you might not get back to me for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's not because you're being rude.
Mhm.
It's because
How
that's
your
just
brain works.
that's how you are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes I'll get messages back from people months later saying,
Mhm.
hey, you want to do this thing? And it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
it's the
And,
invitation
you
is
know,
open.
As a creative, I appreciate that mindset so much.
Yeah.
Um,
It gets a little panicky though, when
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, you're like, oh no, I have no guest for this week, or
it's
coming up.
it's like you were talking about your laptop, like, well, I know my warranty's good till May. Like, well, I'll just put it off. Yeah.
I could just push it on. And then,
Yeah.
and then I also realized that some people are just not comfortable. I think when I had Babe come
Yeah,
on here,
yeah.
and the way that podcast started was so hysterical.
I
'Cause
love both of them so much.
Jen
Yeah.
was just like,
Oh
started
gosh, I didn't know
talking.
we were going to talk about this.
She
Yeah.
just started talking, and she's like, and this is the first time I've ever done this
Yeah,
before,
so I'm
so
very
I
nervous.
don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Like, and I was
I
like,
think because I just listened to that episode again, and I was like, well, I feel the same way. I think most people probably do when
Yeah.
they're talking into a microphone. Like
Right.
I've never been interviewed on record before, so
yeah, well,
um,
and this is such a weird format
Yeah.
too for
just
most
a conversation.
people. Because
Yeah.
well, traditional radio, you'd never go on this long. We'd be
Yeah.
taking breaks. You'd have an agenda.
Pointed questions.
Yeah. I would keep everything nice and tight. And this is just like, podcasting to let people just have conversations that are somewhat focused.
Yeah.
I mean, but they can be whatever you want them to be.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, come on, we'll do whatever.
Yeah, that's
Like-
so cool about it. I love that I think it's a really authentic way to get to know the people on the podcast and
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
Because, there's not a framework necessarily. So you
Yeah, there's
just
no
go
rules.
wherever your mind takes you. And however, that is kind of crazy for my ADD, because like any jump at any topic change or anything, I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, what were we
Exactly.
talking about again?
But
What was I want to say?
That's my favorite kind of,
Yeah.
of shows. Like if we were to just sit here and talk about one thing,
Mm.
I mean, I wasn't even sure we were going to talk about your music. We haven't even gotten to your art yet.
I know.
We're
Yeah.
like almost
Let's
an
get
hour
there.
and 20
Yeah,
into this,
we can get
and we
there.
haven't gotten to your art yet. Which,
Which started first, actually.
yeah, and also you have, I would say your music falls more into like singer-songwriter type stuff, but that's all like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you don't have a lot that you've put out there yet.
Yeah.
Which I hope you
I
do.
actually have another one recorded that I'm going to share with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to play it on the podcast?
Yeah.
That's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd love for you to. Yeah.
I would love to. Oh my gosh. That's exciting.
Both of these songs, like Broken Frame is one that's on Spotify now. That was one I wrote over 2 years ago. That just like, I sat down one day after work and probably wrote it in like 15 minutes.
Wow.
And it's very like structured, and I love the message of that song, and I'm very proud of it. I love it. We play it a little bit differently now than like the recording is, just because it's the band and everything. But and then Medicine is the other one that I'm going to share with you, and it's unreleased. And that one is about a conversation that I had with my boyfriend about being on medication. And at the time, he told me his opinion, like about antidepressants and anxiety medication and sleeping medication or anything like that, allergy medication. His opinion at the time was that the mind had power over the body, and that he didn't really believe that people needed to be on medication, that they had the power within them to like not take it if they so choose. And that's just not my belief at all. And, as a psychology major, I'm like, well, brain composition is what it is. Like if you have a failing kidney, you can't just think that away. Like you're going to have to take medicine to overcompensate for,
I get where he's coming from though. Because I mean, on the surface, that sounds nutty to say, but I think when you look back into, I think most of our medical conditions, including mental conditions, are a result of our inputs of what we eat.
Oh yeah,
our environment.
I don't think medication is the only answer.
I think medication is a patch because in other words, you're treating the symptom. You're not treating what's caused your liver to fail.
Well, yeah, that's why I think.
But you need to treat the thing before you die.
Well, that's why I think, at least with mental health, it's not a magic pill you pop that makes your anxiety go away. And I think Big Pharma wants you to think that. Right. And if this pill's not working for you, then try this new pill or this new pill.
Or combine it with this new pill that treats the symptoms of the pill that you're taking for the other thing.
This one, but then it makes you not be able to sleep at night. So then take this one to sleep, and then you're really tired in the morning when you wake up. So then take this to wake up in the morning. That makes it hard to sleep. It's just like I think that's a toxic cycle.
Right.
But I also don't believe, like I believe some people genuinely need medication. I think at least with low dose antidepressants, and it just raises people's baseline. But as someone who has been through that journey several different times in my life of being depressed and getting on antidepressants and trying to find the right one, and the weight gain and the symptoms and just stuff like that, and that I needed the medication at that time,
right?
With therapy and with exercise and with
you're treating the immediate symptom so that you can get to the root cause and fix that.
And then I got to a point where I didn't I'm not on medication anymore.
Yeah, and that's the goal.
And
you're not
that's
trying.
The goal.
Yeah,
but I wrote this song about people, like you say I don't need medication, but the thing that keeps me high is you. And you think I don't need medication, but it's like people are drugs too.
Right.
And it just talks about sanity and what people think sanity is. And everyone takes medicine.
Let's listen to it now. Yeah. Hold on a second. Do you got it? You have it on your phone? My goodness. Oh, go hold on.
Yeah.
I did not expect it to be
Yeah.
like such a rockin'. You know what I'm saying? I kind of was.
Yeah. So we describe ourselves as psychedelic rock. So
Yeah. But it's definitely got like a grungy 90s
Thank
kind
you.
of
Thank you.
Breeders-ish type of thing going on.
Yeah.
But you know, it's funny. I was thinking before we were talking, and I'd love to hear it here. I'm like, you know, Charleston needs a little bit more of like a tinge of the lo-fi thing going on. And I know that this is probably like a demo.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But the fact that you've got this vocals that sound very, they're not overly processed. They're not perfect. They're not glistening as far as like the production value.
Overproduced.
Yeah. You sound like you're in a practice space almost. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a huge Guided by Voices fan, so I kind of have that.
Yeah,
that
Garbage too. Garbage does that too. Yeah.
That part of my brain that just kind of understands like that's how it sounds to you when you're playing it in a room with your bandmates.
Yeah.
And
I'm really excited about that one. Yeah. I
like
saw
that.
you smile at that Ashley Avenue lyric. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that chorus, I was living on Ashley Avenue. I want to talk about this one. So the house that was next to me when I was living there, the house I lived in was brand new. It was one of those ones that had the quote original beams. But it's just one of those high rises that's like a very cookie cutter apartment.
And they saved like a piece of wood to say,
the beams across the living room. Yeah. And the house next to me was, it was condemned at one point, but people definitely lived there. And when we first moved in, they were like taking our water.
Wow.
Like, and they didn't have power. And
so it was like a punk house, and they're stealing your water from like
punk
the hose.
Would be one word for it, yes. But yeah, the lyric, like, I like was peeking through my blinds at like 4 a.m. because they were making a ruckus, and I watched a lady walk in looking seemingly normal, and then she walked out looking really drunk or like messed up or something. And
so was that?
I had this moment where I was like, I am safe inside this nice house, and I have the means to live this life. But what is separating me from where she is right now?
Yeah. Like,
how did she end up there and I ended up here? And it was just like this trippy moment. And that's kind of an ode to, I think I'm very like nature and nurture person. I think we're born into a thing that kind of determines our life, but then we have the power with what we do with how we're born. But I don't know. I had this kind of moment where I was like, if I had woken up in her body, I might have been living that life. I just think it's such a trippy thought to think about, what, the homeless person you're passing on the street as you're on vacation, how did they end up there and how did you end up here? I think a lot of people like to think, well, they chose to be that way, but so that's what it's an ode to where I used to live.
Well, and
the crack house,
the getting your bike stolen downtown thing. And I'm convinced it's not like the crackhead next door. It could be. But I think it's like an organized thing. I think they drive around and they just
steal them.
Yeah.
And then they sell them again. Yeah. On like Marketplace and stuff. Yeah.
My daughter had a bicycle for like less than 2 days and it got stolen.
Yeah.
And I was like, why did you? She's like, I chained it up to the fence. I was like, that doesn't mean they'll take the whole fence. They'll cut
I've
the fence.
I've learned
too.
to do my bike lock on like the handle railing of the like porch or something, not like
so they got to get through
the
concrete
vertical
and steel.
ones, because the vertical ones they can pop out really easily.
Yeah.
So, but if you do it like around a big post or around like the handrail,
Yeah.
that's connected, they can't steal that part. So
I think you
just a little tip for everybody out there if you're locking up your bike.
Yeah. It's so sad because it's just like, I'm of the belief, like, get the worst bike and make it ugly, but they still will steal it. They don't care. Like you can have a hot pink bike with neon day glow, like green handlebars, and put stickers on it and mismatched tires and like,
you'll see a grown male riding it down the road the next day. You're like, did Did you buy that from Walmart?
That
I don't
looks
know,
a little
man.
suspicious, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I'm excited about that one, and I hope to put the finishing touches on it soon.
Well, thank you for sharing the work in progress version, because sometimes those are the best.
Yeah, so that was recorded and produced by Julie Slinecki, who is a female musician. She just moved back to Charleston. We recorded it in Atlanta when she lived there. She's a dream to work with.
That's so
super
great.
Super creative. She helped me play the instruments, and then John Pope played the drums on that one. They're both in Sex Brews ? But they're just really, it was awesome working with her, and I feel very safe, and I hope to, I plan on recording more with her in the future. And
that's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about that one. Yeah,
I think we're gonna have to do a part 2 at some point. And just focus on your art, because I know you got to get going soon. So I don't want to rush that conversation. Mm-hmm. So we should probably plan to at some point get together again.
Yeah, we'll talk about Marvels by Marissa. Shameless plug.
Well, I know that we're hopefully going to have another For Love of Arts type.
Yes, that is in the works. Yeah, it's in the works. So.
There's also, I guess Vic Hart was telling me, and now I'm following the punk rock flea market that's coming to town.
Yeah, I think it's at Royal, right?
No, it's going to be at the Shriners place where they have the Comic Expo in Mount Pleasant. Yeah. It's a weird kind of place. You're like, what is this?
I've seen some good concerts there, actually.
Yeah.
Saw Doom Flamingo there, and I think Grizz played there one time. Wow. Big Jack, no. Yeah, Grizz. But I'm stoked for the next year and with the band, and now that shows are kind of outdoor shows are opening back up.
They're on the table.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. I don't know what the Royal American.
I know. I miss y'all.
Happen.
Royal, you hear this? We miss you. We love you. We think about you.
I'm hoping you would.
They're holding it down. I mean,
they figured out a way to keep the doors open and keep going. And
we're ready. We ready.
My fear is I hope that they're not doing so well that they'll not bring back.
Don't even put that into the universe.
Can't imagine
don't
John,
put it into the universe. Yes,
I can't
that's
imagine
not
John
an option.
That call.
Yeah,
I can't
not
imagine.
An option.
I can't. I refuse to accept that John would ever make that call. But it'd be nice for them to have some sort of outdoor summer festival, summer shindig style thing to kick things back into gear for everybody. We're all ready.
Yeah,
we're ready. And hopefully it'll be.
That's a goal of mine to play at Royal. I've played solo at Poorhouse on the Deck before, but I'd really like to play there too.
I kind of like the outside now more than the inside.
Yeah, well, I haven't. What does the inside feel like? I don't remember. No, I do. I'm stoked. I'm stoked to. Well, they've taken. I just love how they've kind of created a space for people outside and socially distanced in town. Like the last FemFest, tables were separated and masks required, and the next FemFest, April 17th at Tradesman Brewing, they're taking all the precautionary guidelines, and but I'm just glad that people are still holding space for us to create. I've learned through this experience of kind of finding myself the last few years that you can't always put the pressure on yourself to produce something, but as long as you are holding space for yourself to create and just to be authentic, that's when. Every time you hold space for yourself, something beautiful is not going to come. But you have to constantly allow yourself that space, and then something good will come. It can't be only every time you sit down and intend to do something beautiful that it comes out. Creativity doesn't work like that.
That's the professionalism of it, though.
No, and the perfectionism. Ugh.
The professionalism is showing up knowing that it might not work. But you keep showing up because you're ready for those times when it does work. Yeah. And that's definitely a big difference between, an amateur and a professional. Yeah.
I think it ties back to what we were talking about earlier about, could I have been where I am today without the pain and without the struggle?
Right.
So I think it kind of just ties back into the mindset of, I'm grateful for the times that I really feel like I have a good song that I've written when I sit down and intend to do that.
Right.
Because I know sometimes that doesn't happen. And, I'm grateful for each of those times. I think gratitude is the common denominator of these phases of growth in my life and like authentic and true progression. Because you can't only be grateful for the good in life. Like you have to just be grateful. Well, you don't have to, but I choose to be grateful for all of the different levels of life, not just the productive or positive. So
Yeah. Well, that gives you now that's how you've been able to name and identify the warning signs that you have become quite aware of in your life.
Yeah.
I feel like you could probably create a whole art installation of warning signs. And,
that would be cool.
And,
wow.
you could just do it through abstract painting.
Yeah.
Again,
That'd be cool.
this is we're keeping the door open for another conversation.
Yeah.
But I
and
love
with
that.
the band and being scared, and I'm so grateful for any opportunity that we have in the future.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to work with the boys more. Again, we got Curtis Stimson on the drums, Michael Gartman on the guitar, and Nick Davis on the bass. And
gentlemen, you're doing great work.
they are incredible humans. They're so respectful and encouraging. And, I've touched a little bit on women versus men in the music world today. And I am so grateful to be in a band with these three, men that really encourage me as a female and empower me and see me as an equal, which is really an incredible experience. Because I know even in town, some bands are not like that with
That's
girls.
so sad.
Yeah. But
I'm sad that exists because you kind of like live in this feeling like we've gotten past that.
I know.
And it's like, no, it's kind of like the pandemic. It's like, oh, we're over it. No,
like, no, we're not.
we still got a long, hard road ahead of us.
I'm just grateful to be in that band. And
that's so great that you've got those people in your life. Yeah. And I hope that you will continue to have supportive people throughout all facets of your creative life.
I hope you do too. And everybody come see us on April 17th at Tradesman Brewing. We'll be playing with at FemFest, lots of good women. And
I think if you go what is it, 9to5mag.com?
It's 9 to 5, yeah.
You
9 to
can
5
find
magazine.
tickets.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Links in my, and then do you want me to drop my Instagram and stuff?
I want to know all the ways that people can find you.
Me. So I don't have a website yet, but I'm working on that. The band Instagram is Maya Gold Music. And we have a Facebook, Maya Gold, as well. And then my personal Instagram is Marissa Shreds. And then my art Instagram, which is for another time, but Marvel's by Marissa.
There you go.
So, yeah.
You can find somebody who expertly saw the signs and rode the wave of the Queen's Gambit without knowing it.
I know. I was like, wow. Yes. Resin chess pieces.
She makes custom resin chess pieces. And I was just like, man, that's good timing to have that skill when that show kind of blew up.
Yeah. I didn't take as much advantage of it as I probably should have, but people are still buying them. So.
Yeah. That's so fun. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
And by the way, welcome to the podcast.
Yes.
I never said that in the beginning. And I was
thank you for having me.
I'm just going to do it at the end.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Yeah, I love having conversations with creative people, and thank you for holding space to have these conversations. It's needed.
Thank you for being here, and I look forward to doing this again.
Yes, me too.
He likes to picture himself as a smooth talker, but now the cat has got his tongue. He places his feet inside his boots and his boots on the pavement, and runs from his problems, same as everyone. Ooh, it's strange, the picture he sees in the mirror and what the world sees ain't the same. And he is, yes he is, picture perfect in a broken frame. Picture perfect in a broken frame. He likes to picture himself as a daydreamer, because at night he cannot sleep. He's got a head full of burdens and a mouth full of empty promises, and at night his mind just can't find peace. It's strange, the picture he sees in the mirror wonders because he loves what he don't know. They prance around in lace and diamonds by the number to fill a void made just by one. Ooh, it's strange. The picture sees a mirror and what the world sees ain't the same. And he is, yes he is, picture perfect in a broken frame. It's strange. The picture he sees in the mirror and what the world sees ain't the same. He pictures himself perfect, and he is, yes he is, picture perfect. Ooh, he is, yes he is, picture perfect in a broken frame. Picture perfect in a broken frame. He likes to picture himself as a smooth talker, but now the cat has got his tongue.
Before you get going, don't forget to subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And also, you can check out more at jwnpod.com or follow me on Instagram at Joe Latex. That's at JOEL, the number 8X. Have a great day. Peace.